Tonight, our discussion focuses on an important topic that many people are sometimes too scared to talk about openly. Well, recently, if you've logged into Facebook or Twitter, you may have noticed a bunch of status messages on your feeds. Now, these talk about two words, Me Too. The now trending topic comes after an American actress requested the use of the words Me Too if they were ever sexually assaulted or harassed. All of this, of course, comes after Hollywood actress spoke out about producer Harvey Weinstein's recent sexual advances. So it's got many people talking. In fact, that tweet has now gone viral, getting around 34,000 replies on Twitter. It is also buzzing on Facebook as well, with many people sharing their stories, talking about their personal experiences, saying they were too afraid to speak out in fear of being rejected. All right, to get perspective on this story about Me Too, let's now go to our guest tonight. We have Varnika Kundu joining us from Chandigarh to get perspective. Varnika, thank you so much for talking to us. Me Too has certainly gone viral. It is a topic that many people are sometimes just too afraid to talk about. Give us your experience. What has been your experience in dealing with harassment?
I think as a woman, my experience is just like literally every other woman that I have ever met or come across, especially in the last 2 months ago, I myself was a victim of harassment. And it's not the first time it's happened, but this was the most afraid that I have ever been. And it's not the first time. I mean, it starts when you're very young. It happens with minors in schools all over the country, and I think all over the world. It's happening with every woman, whether she's 3 years old or whether she's 80 years old. I've heard of comatose women being harassed as well. So I think, I mean, it's not just one experience. It's our entire lives. I think it's the curse of being born a woman. And it never stops. And I think the very importance of this hashtag and of this status that has gone viral is because we tend to normalize a lot of the harassment that we have to face. We tend to normalize it when someone touches us on the train or on the bus. We tend to normalize it if someone passes lewd comments. We tend to ignore it. Even so many of us have ignored men who would stand on the side of the road and flash us. Because really, it happened, and now the man is gone. What are you going to do about it? So I think, yeah.
Yeah, Varnika, I also wanted to ask you about the fact that this has gotten, 34,000 responses. I mean, certainly it is. It talks about the numerous cases that perhaps go unreported, or people are just too afraid to speak out. But in a few days from now, will things sort of return back to the status quo? I mean, what needs to be done, in your opinion, so that people are more comfortable talking about this and this doesn't become an issue time and time again?
I think, of course, I mean, there's the usual stuff. We need to stop blaming the victims. We need to give every victim more support, no matter the severity of the crime that has been committed. Even if it is not technically considered a crime, even if I'm going on the road and someone makes me feel uncomfortable by whatever they do, it needs to be made clear to the men, and not just men, to the people who think they can do this, that it's not funny, it's not just a joke. There has been a lot of hue and cry over the last few days about also this club in Pune, whose owner has apparently been harassing women for years. And everyone just tries to make it sound like it's no big deal. So many women come out and talk about how, oh yeah, I did mention it, but they told me it's okay, it's just a joke, it's no big deal, don't make such a big issue about it. That's the problem. I think we need to create issues about it. And I think the biggest thing that we need to do is to make every single person understand that women are not the weaker sex.
When you talk about that situation, though, Varnika, you know, is it something that is just more prevalent in perhaps India or South Asia, or is this really a global issue? I mean, this is an American actress who's taken to Twitter, perhaps not expecting it to go viral. Is this an issue perhaps that only impacts certain people more so than others? I'm not saying it doesn't impact everybody, but is it more of a problem perhaps here in India than perhaps other parts of the world?
Well, I wouldn't say I'm qualified to answer that, but based on personal experience, I used to think that it was more prevalent in my country. But having spoken to and interacted with so many women over the world, especially over the last couple of months since my own incident happened, I have started to believe that it's not just limited to India or to Asia or to, Europe or anywhere. It's a global phenomenon. Like I said, I think it's just the curse of being born a woman. It doesn't matter where you are, what country you are, what social status you have, what job you have. You could be the most powerful person in the room, but the harassment does not stop. And I think I honestly believe that I would not find a single woman who has not faced some sort of harassment based on her gender.
Let me also ask you another question. In fact, when we were reading up on Twitter, Varnika, we actually saw a lot of people who, even men, who actually used the hashtag #MeToo and said, we are to blame, this is part of society's problem, and we feel responsible, we feel disgusted. And some of them actually said even men are victims. Sometimes people don't think about that. We can assume that a majority of the victims are women, but even men sometimes do fall victim and perhaps are too afraid to reach out or speak out in fear of embarrassment. I mean, have you heard of cases about men speaking out or dealing with cases of sexual assault or sexual harassment?
This meeting, I have another meeting.
Again, the reason these men who face harassment are so afraid to speak out is because of the same patriarchal mindset that we live with. Men are strong and women are weak. So if a woman speaks out, it is okay for her to speak out, but then she needs to be ready to deal with the consequences, which are victim shaming, victim blaming, questioning her character and her actions. And with men, it's the other way around. Men are afraid that if they speak out about it, they will be laughed at. Oh, what sort of a man are you if you get harassed? And that is exactly the mindset that I think is also a big part of the problem that causes this.
What gave you the courage to speak out about your situation? What was it like? Was there a bit of a tussle, a debate? I mean, I'm sure it was difficult. What was it like? Give us perhaps a sense of how much of a challenge that was to speak about your story and situation and things that you've seen yourself, as you mentioned, as a woman, sometimes even getting approval from not only authorities, but even close friends and family. How difficult was that for you?
Honestly, I've been very lucky that way. Everyone around me has just been supportive. And for me, it wasn't really a question of speaking out or not. I spoke out because I was shocked, because my city is supposed to be one of the safest cities in the country. And if in a place like that, I have to, with the privileges that I have, and I still have to face something like that, then what hope does anyone else have? And I think the biggest reason I spoke out was to let people know that it doesn't matter who you are and where you are or what you're wearing or what you're doing. Harassment does not discriminate. The people who are going to do this are going to do this. And there was never a question about speaking out or not, because I knew I had to. Because if I'm not going to do it, I believe I was just the instrument. Someone had to do it. It's high time. I think every woman is so afraid of constantly having to look over her shoulder that someone had to do it. If it was me, so be it.
All right, Varnika, we'll come back to you in just a second. I also want to bring into the discussion another guest, a social activist joining us to get more perspective on this. I mean, this is really a hot button issue, not just now, but it's been for a while, again, coming back into the limelight. We have Payal Gupta joining us from New Delhi. She is a social activist and a member of an NGO to weigh in on this. Payal, we just heard from Varnika, who unfortunately is one of many women who's dealt with a situation like this. Let's talk about Me Too. How surprised are you that this American actress's tweet has now evoked such a strong response, not just from the American community, but really from all around the world? I mean, 35,000 replies on Twitter, and it's also picked up momentum. I mean, I was looking at my Facebook feed and so many different status messages of people sharing their personal, raw, emotional stories. Your thoughts, Payal?
This is not surprising. Probably it's taken too long for people to react. They should have done this earlier. Now, because this person has been doing it for so many years, it's been over 15, 17 years. I think we should continue reading these things and creating awareness so that people who are doing it do not have to face it any further. And people who are doing it are afraid. They should be scared before even thinking about anything like that.
All right, we'll come back to the discussion in just a bit, but of course we want to provide perspective on how all of this really unfolded, and one of the reasons why we believe that this issue is now again back in the limelight is because of Hollywood producer Harvey Weinstein. You probably heard about him in the news recently. Well, he's not the only one who's accused of such sexual advances in the world of showbiz. In fact, there are many others who exist very similar to that in Hollywood and Bollywood and other industries as well. Here's a quick report.
The string of sexual abuse allegations against Harvey Weinstein has turned Hollywood upside down. But Weinstein is not the only flag bearer of sexual harassment in show business. In fact, sexual assault is a never-ending saga in the showbiz industry the world over. Oscar-winning filmmaker Roman Polanski was arrested and charged in Los Angeles for drugging and raping a 13-year-old girl. Fearing imprisonment, Polanski fled to France in 1978, hours before he was to be formally sentenced. While the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences have ousted Weinstein from the membership, Hollywood's de facto governing body kept mum on Polanski's case. Another Oscar dignitary, filmmaker Mel Gibson, stirred a hornet's nest in 2010 when his then-wife Oksana Grigorieva filed for a restraining order against him, accusing him of domestic violence. Tapes were also released where Gibson was allegedly heard saying his wife deserved to be raped. Indian filmmaker Kareem Morani, the man behind many big-budget films like Dilwale, Happy New Year and Chennai Express, was arrested this year for allegedly raping a 25-year-old on the pretext of marrying her. But Morani claims the relationship was consensual. Madhur Bhandarkar, the man known for portraying the dark secrets of the film and fashion industry on the celluloid, found himself in troubled waters when an aspiring actor lodged a complaint accusing him of raping her 16 times between 1999 and 2004 under the pretext of marrying her and giving her a break in Bollywood. However, things took a bizarre turn when the complainant was arrested for hiring a contract killer to kill Bhandarkar. So like Hollywood has turned its back on Weinstein, will these other industry bigwigs ever be ostracized? Entertainment Bureau, WION.
All right, let's go back to the discussion. Let me bring in Varnika back into the conversation. Varnika, this is a problem that is not just here, as we talked about earlier, not in Bollywood, not in Hollywood, but a global problem. Is it different, though, when actors or actresses speak out about the issue? Do you believe that then it sometimes gets more clout and more awareness when celebrities speak out on the issue, especially something as tabooed as the casting couch and sexual harassment?
Definitely, because celebrities and anyone influential has the power to reach a lot more people. They influence a lot more people. And I mean, we've heard so many cases of, celebrities speaking out for causes and actually affecting change because they spoke out and because people actually listened. So I think everyone who has any sort of influence needs to speak out about this, because otherwise, it's still not going to reach, it might reach the top 1% or the top 5%, but what about everyone else?
Absolutely. All right, we'll come back to the discussion in a bit. Now I also want to bring in the story, the Me Too story, and what exactly prompted this American actress to speak out, of course, in light of all the recent allegations against Harvey Weinstein. But of course, in the United States, this is an issue that has been sort of making waves even before, in fact, even before U.S. President Donald Trump was elected. There was that video that was leaked talking to him about groping women. So let's get a perspective on how this all unfolded online.
An outpouring of painful and raw stories has now emerged on social media with the words, Me Too. It comes after a series of high-profile sex scandals, with the latest one involving Hollywood producer Harvey Weinstein. The flurry of responses shows how the problem extends well beyond the wealthy, impacting women around the world every day. Actor Alyssa Milano tweeted, and I quote, "If you've been sexually harassed or assaulted, write Me Too as a reply to this tweet." That tweet has now gone viral with more than 32,000 responses and 12,000 retweets. France had a similar trending hashtag, Balance ton porc, which translates to expose the pig. It saw many women talk about how they were sexually harassed or exploited at work or in the streets. It was started by a journalist, Sandra Muller, who started the hashtag after her former boss called her "my type of woman" and then commented on her breasts. This is the first time that many women in the US and France are openly speaking about the abuse they've faced. Many of them say they had to overcome feelings of embarrassment and shame as they relived the painful memories. Some of the women who used the Me Too hashtag said they were abused by relatives or as teenagers by someone they trusted. Nobody believed them when they spoke about it. Many men also sympathized with the issue and said the responsibility to stop sexual harassment falls on them, and saying they feel sad and disgusted. While many of the posts were personal, the recent Harvey Weinstein scandal and last year's tape leak of US President Donald Trump talking about groping women also became a focal point in the discussion. More than 20 women, including the who's who of Hollywood, have now come forward to accuse Weinstein of sexual harassment, assault, and rape. Weinstein, though, denies the accusation and says it was consensual sex. After the incident, the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences has expelled him. Bureau Report, WION.
All right, let's go to Payal Gupta now to get perspective on this. Payal, let's also talk about the fact that, Harvey Weinstein may have been one producer where all of this sort of came back into the limelight, but this issue of harassment, abuse, not only in India but around the world, of course, is an issue that's really been plaguing women for many years to come. What are some things that people can do? If women notice or feel that they are a victim, why do you encourage them to speak out, and what is the best way to do so in your perspective?
They should for sure speak up, and I think social media is the best way, because the access to social media is the most for everyone. And of course, people who will not, most of the people will not agree to this. So that is why, whether it be Twitter, whether it be Facebook, WhatsApp, all these kinds are available for us to voice out the problem that we face. This is a very big thing in the society. So I think the victims should take help of social media and take help of all the people who are using social media to voice out their problem.
All right, Varnika, let me ask you the same question in terms of your advice to other women, other people out there perhaps who may feel like they are a victim, they've been abused at work, abused with family or friends or people that they even know. Sometimes they say even it's the people that you actually know who sometimes, unfortunately, are the attackers or the perpetrators. And that's, unfortunately, a sad statistic. What's your advice? What do you wish to sort of convey to them if they feel that they are in that delicate situation, perhaps a little afraid to speak out?
I think the only solution to this problem is for us to stop being afraid to speak out. I myself was a victim of victim shaming, and the people who did it because they thought that they could get me to stop talking. If they tried to shame me, if they tried to embarrass me in national media, I might, back down or stop talking about what I'm talking about. But I didn't, and it backfired on them. And I think what we need to do is to stop being afraid. We need to stop giving these people the power to make us afraid, and we need to just, of course, it would be a lot easier if all of us had support, but I know that a lot of women don't get support from friends or family or whoever they choose to reach out to. And but the only way we can stop this is by speaking out. I know it's scary and it makes us afraid, but I think that fear is still easier to deal with than the fear of being harassed every single time we step out of the house, or even if we don't step out of the house.
Could stricter laws perhaps change that? Here in India, you mentioned earlier in our discussion about, being groped on public transport like trains or buses or things like that. I mean, could stricter laws, stricter penalties perhaps change that? I mean, where does this start? Is it with law enforcement? Is it with the society's mindset about bringing up boys and men to look at women differently? I mean, what is the root cause if we can pinpoint it to perhaps one thing?
I mean, of course, we need stricter laws, and stricter laws would be great. But I feel that the law only comes in once the act has been initiated. You know, what we need to do is to stop these things from happening. And you're right, it's about the upbringing. It's not only about the upbringing of the men, it's also about the upbringing of the women. A big part of the reason that I wasn't afraid to speak out was because this was how I was brought up. I knew that my parents would support me. I knew that I have to speak out because maybe I have some resources that a lot of other women wouldn't. And I was taught that being a woman does not make me weaker than anyone else, and it does not make me different. It's just the physiology. That is the only difference between me and any other man. And it's not like all men are equally strong. Some men are stronger than others. Some women are stronger than some men.
Right.
So I think it is the upbringing. Of course, we have to teach the men to respect the women. We have to teach them that women are not weaker. We are not inferior in any capacity. But we also need to teach the women that. And that, I think, is where the real change can actually happen.
All right. We appreciate all of your inputs and your time, Barnika and Payal, on this story. Thank you so much for weighing in. We appreciate both of your time.